It began with a moment so quiet, so still, you wouldn't even notice it unless your soul was listening. You were walking through your life, maybe stuck in routine, maybe successful on the outside but hollow inside, and then something cracked. Maybe it was a dream you couldn't shake, a number that kept appearing, a whisper in the silence of your mind. Maybe it was a breakdown, a loss, a moment that shattered your identity. But inside that shattering, something ancient stirred. You didn't know what it was at first, but you felt it. A pull, a calling, a vibration deep within your bones that said, "There's more." And you already know it. That's the moment the mystic is born, not in temples, not on mountaintops, but in the raw, unfiltered truth of awakening. And once that truth touches you, there's no going back. You've tasted the edge of the sacred. You've remembered something older than time. We are the mystic chosen ones, not because we're elite, not because we're better, but because we remembered. We remembered that this world is not what it seems, that beneath the noise, the algorithms, the expectations, there is a rhythm, or a pulse, a living wisdom that predates every empire and outlasts every lie. That wisdom is encoded in you, and when you begin to reconnect with it, your vibration changes. Not because you chant the right mantras or wear the right crystals, but because you remember who you are. And remembering is the most radical thing you can do in a world built on forgetting. The first way we raise our vibration as mystic chosen ones is through sacred breath. I'm not talking about shallow, unconscious breathing. I'm talking about breath as a bridge, breath as a code. Breath is a language that speaks directly to the divine intelligence of the body. In ancient traditions, the breath was not just a biological necessity, it was a spiritual technology. The yogis called it prana. The Taoists called it qi. The shamans called it spirit wind. And when we breathe with intention, we awaken that force. We begin to shift our state. We cleanse the emotional body. We release the static of the modern mind. Sacred breath brings us back to now. And in the now, your vibration is untouchable. So let me ask you, when was the last time you really breathed? Not to survive, but to remember.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The second path is through vibration itself, through sound, frequency, and tone. Ancient cultures knew that sound was not entertainment, it was medicine. The Egyptians built temples that resonated with specific frequencies to activate higher states of consciousness. The Vedic sages used mantra to shape reality through repetition and resonance. The indigenous elders used the drum to sync the heartbeat with the earth. And somewhere inside you, you still remember those codes. That's why certain music moves you in ways you can't explain. That's why your soul responds to certain tones, syllables, chants, because sound bypasses the intellect and goes straight to the soul. As mystic chosen ones, we don't just listen, we tune. We tune ourselves, our environment, our intentions through sound. We hum, we chant, we speak with resonance. We become a living instrument of awakening. And when your frequency is embodied, it changes the room before you even speak. The third ancient wisdom is sacred movement. Not just working out. Not just yoga poses for Instagram. I mean movement as prayer, movement as remembrance, dance that opens portals, postures that unlock memory. In every tradition, there was movement tied to divinity. The Sufis spun in circles to become one with the divine. The African tribes stomped the ground to awaken the ancestors. The martial artists moved in slow, precise patterns to align with cosmic forces. This isn't performance, it's embodiment. Your body is not separate from your spirit. It's the temple that holds your codes. And when you move with intention, you invite your soul to take up more space. You begin to clear stuck energy. You begin to awaken ancient energy stored in your joints, muscles, spine. That is vibrational mastery. That is mystic intelligence. So ask yourself, when you move, are you escaping your body or returning to it? The fourth way is through communion with nature. Not just hiking for the gram, not just being outside. I mean communing, listening, merging, becoming one with the intelligence of the earth. The ancients knew the earth wasn't a resource, it was a living library. Every tree, every rock, every wind current holds memory. It holds codes. And when we slow down enough to connect, those codes activate us. Have you ever sat beside a tree long enough to feel it speak to you? Have you ever placed your hands on the soil and felt your nervous system recalibrate? That's not your imagination. That's ancient wisdom reconnecting with you. As mystic chosen ones, we don't go into nature to escape the world, we go to remember our place in it. We realign with the original frequency. We remember that we are not separate from nature, we are nature, encoded with divine intelligence. The fifth way we raise our vibration through ancient wisdom is through silence and stillness. In a world addicted to noise, silence is a form of rebellion. But in the ancient temples, silence was sacred. It wasn't emptiness, it was presence. It was the space where the soul could speak, where divine intelligence could be heard. As mystic chosen ones, we don't fear silence, we seek it. We enter it like a sacred chamber. We let it strip away the noise, the stories, the static. In silence, your frequency sharpens. Your awareness deepens. Your vibration becomes a tuning fork for truth. And when you've cultivated that kind of inner stillness, no external storm can touch you. You become the eye of the hurricane. You become the calm in the chaos. That's not passivity, that's power. These 5 ways are not trends. They're not hacks. They're not spiritual entertainment. They are sacred technologies passed down through lineages that survived genocide, colonization, and cultural erasure, because the truth cannot be destroyed. It can be buried. It can be forgotten. But it always returns through those brave enough to remember. And that's what we are. We are the ones who came to remember, to activate, to embody. We are not here to learn something new, we are here to reawaken the ancient within us. But with that remembrance comes responsibility. Because once you raise your vibration, you can no longer pretend you don't feel what you feel. You can no longer ignore the misalignment. You can no longer betray your soul without consequence. Your energy body becomes sensitive. Your soul starts speaking louder. Your body becomes a compass. And every time you ignore it, it speaks through discomfort, illness, anxiety. That's not punishment. That's communication. And when you listen, when you honor the signals, you unlock even deeper layers of wisdom. That's how the mystic chosen ones navigate life, not through logic alone, but through energetic precision. And let's be clear, raising your vibration is not about bypassing pain. It's not about floating above reality in some blissed out state. It's about going deeper into truth. It's about feeling everything, processing it, alchemizing it, and then choosing alignment. High vibration doesn't mean you never feel anger or grief or fear. It means those emotions don't control you. You move through them with awareness. You honor them without becoming them. That's the real mastery. That's the real elevation. And that's how we walk this path, not as perfect beings, but as present ones. So I ask you, which of these ancient ways are you being called to remember right now? Which one is whispering to your soul, saying, "Come back"? We've been waiting. Is it the breath? The sound? The movement? The earth? The silence? Don't try to do them all at once. Just choose one. Begin there. Let that one open the door. Because once the door opens, the others will follow. And before you know it, your vibration won't just rise, it will resonate. It will speak. It will transmit. When we begin to walk the path of reawakening, something extraordinary happens. Our reality starts to rearrange itself around our vibration. You may notice that certain people disappear from your life, not in anger, but in energetic mismatch. You may feel your body rejecting foods, environments, or even daily routines that once felt normal. That's not chaos. That's coherence. That's your field reorganizing itself around truth. Because when you start living in alignment with ancient wisdom, your vibration rises beyond preference. It becomes precision. You no longer chase what looks good. You follow what feels real. And that subtle shift is what begins to collapse illusions and open portals. We live in an age where knowledge is abundant, but wisdom is rare. The difference is that knowledge speaks from the mind, but wisdom speaks from the body of experience. Ancient wisdom is not something you find in books or memorize in a course. It's something you remember through practice and through embodiment, through the willingness to slow down and actually listen to what the old ones left behind, not just in words, but in vibration. The earth remembers. Your cells remember. Your breath remembers. And the more we engage with these ancient paths, the more those memories begin to rise from the depths of our being and guide us without effort. We stop seeking answers outside and start receiving them from within. One of the most powerful truths we can reclaim is that raising our vibration is not about escaping the human experience. It's about deepening it. The mystic does not float above the earth, they root into it. We're not here to transcend reality. We're here to transform it through frequency, through grounded, lived, embodied truth. The ancient ones knew this. They didn't separate spirit from matter. They saw the divine in the dirt, in the bones, in the everyday rituals of life. The way they prepared food, the way they built homes, the way they honored sunrise and sunset, everything was a ceremony. That's what we're returning to. A life where the sacred is not something we visit, it's something we live. Let's talk about breath again, because it is not just the first ancient practice, it is the first life. When you entered this world, you did not arrive with words or beliefs. You arrived with breath. And that breath was your first act of power. Every inhale is a receiving. Every exhale is a release. That's not metaphor. That's energetic law. Your breath patterns mirror your trauma, your lineage, your resistance, and your expansion. Shallow breath means shallow presence. Deep breath means deep embodiment. Mystic chosen ones use the breath like a blade and a balm. We cut through illusion with it. We soothe the nervous system with it. And when we engage in conscious breath work, whether it's yogic, shamanic, or intuitive, we don't just oxygenate the body, we activate the soul. So ask yourself, how are you breathing when you're afraid? When you're alive? When you're in love with the moment? Now let's go deeper into sound. The ancients didn't use sound just to express, they used it to create. In the Vedic tradition, it is said that the universe was created with sound, not light. The word was not just spoken, it was vibrated into form. In Egyptian temples, priests used specific vowel sounds to activate different chakras and open portals of consciousness. Even in lost civilizations, we find remnants of this truth: harmonic chambers, resonant stones, carved frequencies. As mystic chosen ones, we are reclaiming this power. We chant not to perform, but to vibrate. We hum not to soothe, but to tune. Your voice is not random. It is a tool. And the more you use it with intention, the more your entire field begins to harmonize. Want to raise your vibration instantly? Speak your truth out loud. Even if your voice shakes, especially then. Movement as sacred expression is perhaps one of the most misunderstood of the ancient ways. Because in the modern world, we've reduced movement to exercise, to punishment, to manipulation of the body for appearance. But the ancients knew that the body is a temple and movement is prayer. Every gesture communicates with energy. Every posture opens or blocks a flow. When we move with intention, whether it's through dance, martial arts, walking, meditation, or even stretching, we unlock codes stored in our fascia, our joints, our spine. Trauma is not just in your mind, it's in your shape, in your gait, in your stillness. And when we move consciously, we begin to release what words cannot touch. We begin to rewrite the story in our body. That's why so many of us cry during dance, shake during breath work, feel rage during yoga. It's not random, it's release. Your body is not betraying you, it's freeing you. Nature, the fourth way, is not a luxury. It is not a vacation. It is a necessity. The earth is not background, it is source code. Every rhythm of nature, the tides, the seasons, the sun and moon cycles mirrors something in your own body. The ancients built calendars, ceremonies, and entire civilizations around these rhythms. And when we disconnect from nature, we disconnect from those codes. That's why so many of us feel anxious, scattered, numb. Because we are trying to live in linear time while our soul is wired for cyclical flow. When you step into nature and allow yourself to sync with its intelligence, your vibration recalibrates. Not because you're doing anything, but because you're finally being. So ask yourself, how often do you touch the earth with your bare skin? How often do you watch the stars without agenda? How often do you let the wind carry your prayers? And then there is silence, stillness. The most avoided, most feared, and most powerful of all. In silence, the ego dies. The masks fall. The noise fades. and what's left is truth. That's why so many people avoid it. Because in silence, you can't hide behind distractions. You meet yourself, not the curated version, not the performative version, but the raw, unfiltered soul underneath it all. And it's that self, the one in the stillness, that holds the key to your vibration. You want to raise your frequency? Sit with yourself in silence every morning, not to fix, not to analyze, just to be, to listen, to remember. You'll be amazed what rises when the noise falls. As mystic chosen ones, we're not here to follow a blueprint. We are the blueprint. The ancient ways live in us, not as rules, but as remembrance. And every time we choose to engage in these practices, not out of trend, but out of alignment, we step into our true frequency. We become walking temples, living ceremonies, breathing codes of light. And our presence becomes a transmission that affects every room we walk into, every soul we encounter, every space we touch. But if we're honest, we'll admit there are forces, both internal and external, that try to pull us away from these practices. Doubt, distraction, disconnection. The modern world is engineered to keep us in mental loops, not energetic flow. That's why discipline is not punishment, it's devotion. It's how we reclaim our time, our energy, our vibration from the machine. It's how we say, I remember who I am, and I refuse to live on autopilot. Even 5 minutes of breath, a few sacred movements, a moment in nature, a chant whispered into the morning light, a pause in silence. These are not small acts. They are portals. And so the question becomes, will you answer the call? Will you reclaim the ancient ways, not as history, but as living truth? Will you become the mystic who doesn't just know the path, but walks it? Because the world doesn't need more information. It needs embodiment. It needs resonance. It needs souls who live their frequency so fully that their very being becomes a map for others to remember their own. That is what it means to raise your vibration through ancient wisdom, not to escape the world, but to awaken it. There is a moment in every mystic's journey where the silence becomes louder than the noise. When the distractions of the world lose their grip and the truth within begins to roar. It doesn't always feel beautiful. Sometimes it feels like breaking, like losing the version of yourself that once made sense. But in that dissolution, something extraordinary happens. Clarity rises. A clarity so pure, it doesn't come in words or thoughts, but in frequency. You begin to sense that you are not who you were taught to be. You are not your trauma. You are not your job. You are not your name. You are a living current of ancient intelligence, temporarily inhabiting this form, here to remember, realign, and radiate. What makes mystic chosen ones different is not that we are more powerful, it's that we are more attuned. We feel what others ignore. We hear what others silence. We sense what others dismiss. And because of that, we are often overwhelmed, misunderstood, or seen as too much. But in truth, that sensitivity is our superpower. It is our compass. It is the very thing that allows us to perceive the subtle realms where vibration speaks louder than language. And when we stop trying to numb it, suppress it, or normalize ourselves to fit into a dysfunctional world, we begin to rise into our true frequency. We begin to live as the medicine we were always meant to be. Let's revisit the breath, not just as a practice, but as a portal. There are breath patterns you haven't accessed yet. There are states of consciousness available to you through breath alone that make psychedelics unnecessary. Through rhythmic breathing, you can enter altered states, clear ancestral trauma, activate dormant energy centers, and even download information from the unified field. But it requires presence. It requires trust. Because the breath will bring up everything you've buried. It will show you where you hold, where you resist, where you disconnect. And in those moments, you must choose to stay with it, to breathe through it, to let the breath take you deeper into yourself, not as an escape, but as an initiation. Sound, too, is not just about healing, it's about creation. Every word you speak is a spell. Every tone you emit is a signal. And when you begin to align your voice with your vibration, you become a master of frequency. Speak only what you want to see manifest. Sing only that which nourishes your soul. Chant not to sound spiritual, but to resonate with Source. There is a chant that lives in your bones, older than any language you've learned. A sound that is uniquely yours, and when you find it, when you vibrate it, when you let it move through you without inhibition, you become a tuning fork for the entire field. Your vibration recalibrates not just you, but everything around you. That's not metaphor. That's physics. Movement is where we store the unspoken. Your body holds every story you didn't tell, every emotion you suppressed, every memory your mind forgot but your cells remembered. So when you move, you don't just stretch, you release. You don't just dance, you return. You don't just sway, you reclaim. Sacred movement is not about choreography. It's about surrender. It's about letting your body show you what your mind has hidden. And when you move from that space, intuitively, freely, without performance, you begin to access the deepest layers of your being. You begin to rewrite your energetic blueprint. You begin to raise your vibration from the inside out. Nature is the original teacher. You want to understand abundance? Watch a tree give without depletion. You want to understand surrender? Watch a river carve stone through patience. You want to understand resilience? Watch how the earth regenerates after fire. Nature doesn't need to hustle. It doesn't need to prove. It is. And when we align with that rhythm, when we stop trying to dominate nature and instead listen to it, we begin to heal. Not just physically, but vibrationally. We begin to remember that we are not separate from the forest or the ocean or the sky. We are extensions of their intelligence. And the more we attune to that, the more our energy field begins to mirror the Earth's coherence. That's not spirituality. That's biology. And what of silence? Silence is where the soul speaks. It is the space where your guides gather, where your higher self downloads, where the chaos of the mind surrenders to the clarity of the infinite. But most of us are terrified of it, because silence reveals. It reveals the noise we've used to distract ourselves. It reveals the voices we've internalized that aren't even ours. It reveals the truth we've been avoiding. But if you are brave enough to sit in that silence, to let it wash over you, to let it strip you bare, you will find gold. You will find you. The you that doesn't need validation. The you that remembers lifetimes of wisdom. the you that vibrates truth without needing to say a word. Now, let's bring all 5 together, not as separate practices, but as one living system. Imagine this: you begin your day with 5 minutes of intentional breath. You then chant a sound that calls your soul back into your body. You move not to burn calories, but to awaken energy. You walk barefoot on the earth and let her recalibrate your nervous system. You sit in silence and receive what can't be taught. That's not a routine. That's a ritual. That's not self-care. That's soul care. And when you live like this, not as a performance, but as a devotion, your vibration doesn't just rise, it radiates. You become a walking field of coherence. You become a living portal for the ancient to move through the modern. But here's the final truth: this path is not always glamorous. It's not always easy. It's not always shareable on social media. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it breaks you open in ways you didn't ask for. But every breakdown is a breakthrough in disguise. Every shadow is a doorway. Every challenge is a teacher. And when you begin to see life like that, not as something happening to you, but something unfolding through you, you become unshakable. Not because you're immune to pain, but because your vibration is rooted in something deeper than circumstance. So what will you choose? To live on the surface, chasing temporary highs? Or to descend into the ancient truth within and rise with a frequency that cannot be faked? Will you numb, distract, and perform? Or will you breathe, sound, move, commune, and be? This is not a question for your mind. It's a call to your soul. You already know the answer. You've always known. That's why you're here. That's why you're still listening. Because something ancient within you remembers. And now, it's your turn to live it. You are the breath. You are the sound. You are the movement. You are the earth. You are the silence. You are the mystic. You are the chosen. And your vibration is the map we've been waiting for.